So last time we got all of this trial built, got everything fastened in position, and while I feel it's gone really well, there was a little bit of controversy in the comments section, particularly about this lower horn area. One of the things that was said was now that I'd moved the pickguard back to close up this gap, it had kind of messed up the lower horn area. Now I don't particularly think that that's the case, because essentially all I did when I moved that pickguard back that 4 or 5 millimeters is put it back where it should have been in the first place. However, there is an issue, and some of the comments were perfectly valid, in so much as this area here, it just doesn't look right. And it could be said that the whole horn area does look a little bit chunky. So I've had a good look at everything to see if I can figure out exactly what's going on, and it occurs to me that it's probably a number of things. A couple of people put the blame on the templates. I don't really think that's the case. I think it's more a case of there's some inconsistency between the templates, the pickguard, the pickups, all of the components that have been used. Each of them being ever so slightly inconsistent with the other has kind of made things work not as well as I would have liked, but I'm pretty sure I can get it back on track. Now, one of the things I did check was how accurate the body is to the template, and I think I'm pretty close, but I don't think I'm absolutely 100%. And to check that, I've made a little template out of a bit of card, and this has been made from the template outline, and then I've cut it so it fits nice and snug around the scratch plate, and everything's fairly close, but not quite. Because if I try it on one of my other Stratocasters, you can see it fits really nicely around here, but when we get to this section there is a little bit of excess material, but it's not actually that much. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a little bit of blue tape on the job. I'm going to tape this in place. And I'm going to turn it over, and I'm just going to trace round this inner horn area so we've got a much better idea of where we need to be with the other one. And I think we can see there, that's how much material we've got to lose. So I'll just put this out of the way for a minute, and then I'll just kind of trim that out with a scalpel. And there we can see exactly where it is that we need to kind of just remove a little bit of material. Just to make that look right, and I think if we kind of cut it back to there and then redo the round over, we'll get it somewhere a lot closer to where it needs to be. So that's one of the issues out of the way. However, there is another one, and to demonstrate that we need the red strap back again, because there's an inconsistency with the round overs. Let's see if I can find the right one. I measured this round over to be around about 10 millimeters. It's not perfectly 10 millimeters. I would imagine this was cut with a imperial sized cutter, but that's pretty close to 10 mil. And if I measure this one, that it's actually substantially smaller than 10mm on this. So this is going to be a two-stage remedy. We need to trim this little bit of excess material out of the lower horn area, and then we need to go back over it and just redo these roundovers with an ever so slightly bigger roundover bit. And to do that, I'm going to have to take it all to pieces again. So with that all back to pieces again, I'm going to break out the bobbin sander and we can get this little bit of material smoothed away. Okay, so that's that material, or most of it, taken out. I think that's as far as I dare go with it. And it still looks kind of a little bit clunky around there, and looks to be a little bit more material in there than we need. But what we need to bear in mind is we're going to be bringing a round over kind of at least to there. So I think that will bring things back to where we need them, and making that whole area look a lot nicer. So next up is to see if we can find a suitable sized roundover bit and just get this next section all sorted out. And I've managed to find a slightly bigger roundover bit. It is quite old though, and it feels a little bit on the dull side. I've given it a bit of a clean up with a little diamond plate just to get the worst of the crud off it and try and establish that edge again. But it's not the best. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the scratch plate, run around the whole thing as much as I can with the original size cutter that I first did the round over with, just to get rid of any of the kind of flat spots we might have introduced, and then I'll swap it out for this one and just enlarge that round over to the size that we actually want. so that's the round over, just made that a little bit bigger, and it already, I think to my eye, looks a bit better. Just drop that scratch plate in and put it in position, and I think that horn is looking an awful lot better, but there's still some kind of minor inconsistencies around there, but we'll get that with the sanding stage. However, you might be able to see it has introduced a line around here, so that just needs to be blended in. So I'll just take my little palm sander and we'll get that sanded out. And then with that done, I'm just going to just do a little bit of hand sanding. Just to get rid of any lumps and bumps and blend that in a little bit. I'm going to talk quite quickly about this Stratocaster because I know I'll get asked in the comments anyway, so I'll get it out of the way. This is my backup Strat from when I was playing in bands. You might have already seen the Blue American Standard, that was kind of my #1 guitar. This was bought as a backup. Previous to this I had a Candy Apple Red Jaguar, but I really struggled to make it work in the context of the band, so I just bit the bullet and bought another Stratocaster instead. It's a Japanese 62 reissue, which I bought in '94, brand new. I've still got all the tags and everything in its case. It's been slightly modified, so it's got a Seymour Duncan Lil 59 in the bridge position, so that's a PAF style mini humbucker in there, and it's also got this switch which kind of coil taps the humbucker. However, I didn't cut the original pickguard to put that switch in. I still have that safe and sound as I do the original pickup. So if I wanted to take this back to stock, I could do. I love this guitar. I play it all the time. It's very nice. It's got that vintage feel and just sounds and plays really, really nicely. Obviously, Candy Apple Red. For its age, it's still in fairly good condition. There are 1 or 2 scratches on it, 1 or 2 little dings, but apart from that, it's pretty good. No major damage. It's got the vintage Clusen style tuners. I think the only problem with it is the thread has gone in the trem block, so you can't fit a tremolo arm anymore, which isn't a big deal for me because I've got the trem blocked off anyway because I never use it. So all in all, nice guitar in what I will admit is my favourite colour, Candy Apple Red. So there we go. And I think that looks an awful lot better. There's still a little bit of a bump there, but I'm sure we'll get that with the final sanding. Just drop that pickguard back in once more. That's looking very, very much better. And to demonstrate that further, I'll get the 2 Strats side by side so we can do a kind of a longer shot just to see how they look together. And this is quite hard to shoot, but I think we're an awful lot closer there. I think we could probably just still do with a little bit more radius in there just to take a touch more material out, but I think from where we were, very, very much closer, and I think that doesn't look anywhere near as goofy as it did before. But that isn't the final sanding. We still do need to do a little bit more work on there. So there is a bit of scope to finesse this further and bring it back to where we need it. So for the time being, I'm happy to move on from that. There are, however, a few more little jobs that need doing on this before we can move on to the final finish sanding. And that is, we need to fit the strap buttons, and we also need to fit the rear cover plate. Both of which aren't particularly big jobs, so shouldn't take too much longer. And there we have that fitted. And the strap buttons, I managed to poke one of those holes through into the back of the control cavity, which is not ideal, but the screw only just barely pokes through. This is going to have some form of shielding in anyway, so that won't be an issue for me. So that is pretty much all of the work done now that we need to do before we can crack on with the actual finished sanding of this. However, this episode's getting quite long, so I'll save that and the sanding of the neck till the next episode. And hopefully by that time I'll be in a position when we can start to talk about what the finish on this guitar is actually going to be. Until that point, don't forget to hit that like button if you've enjoyed this, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.